just wanted to carefully build an old engine using modern technology. And then I thought about it and decided that I would really like to install the 5.6 liter engine. I was looking for a Mercedes. It had to be a sedan, and I absolutely wanted one with a big front grille. It should have lots of chrome and those beautiful curved fenders, and that was the reason I told myself, yes, the 108, that's exactly what I think is awesome. Hey, I'm Steven and I'm from the beautiful Western Sea, and I have a Mercedes W108 with a V8 engine. Since I can very rarely leave anything that is truly original, and in fact, speed wasn't the reason. It's not about the power either, it's simply the sound, and because a V8 engine just looks beautiful, just in terms of its design, it's a beautiful engine. And yeah, that's exactly when the very first idea came to me, and of course, as time went on, more and more interesting ideas just kept coming to mind one after another. This car also slows you down incredibly. So you sit in there and it gives you a feeling of extreme safety, probably because it's just so big, so spacious, and feels so incredibly solid. Then there's the smell of the leather, of the materials. You look out through the windshield and see that beautiful star on the front of the grille. These are emotions and driving sensations that just can't be compared to modern cars. Of course, no question, a modern car comes with a lot of things, it's quiet and this and that. But here it's really about the sounds. You still have the feeling that you're really driving a car yourself. Sourkrauts, the authentic streetwear brand for petrolheads. Yeah, as a young teenager, I was interested in anything that had an engine. At first, old Zundab mopeds. Then I had an Aprilia that I tuned. Then it was getting close to my 18th birthday, and that's when I got myself a Corrado. I still have it today. I rebuilt it several times. Originally it was a G60, then I did the typical things: chip tuning, supercharger pulley, intercooler. Then, on my way to the VW Blasen event back then, at the Lausitzring, I had an engine failure on the way there, so after that I built myself a 2-liter G60. Exactly, and then the desire for more just kept growing. Then it became a 16V turbo, and after that I converted it to all-wheel drive with 4Motion. That's how I drove it for a while. Then it was a 16V turbo with DSG. Yeah, but then simply because I kept wanting more, it just sat around all the time, and eventually I just lost interest. And then I started looking for an alternative. In the meantime, I also became a dad and wanted to move away a bit from this intense tuning scene with lots of horsepower and all that, and I just wanted something I could cruise around in. Then I found the system really awesome. Yeah, and that's when the idea with the Benz came up. Well, I figured it should be an old Mercedes, so I started searching for one. And as it happens, I found the car in Potsdam. It had served an estate agency there for a while. You know, they used it to drive their clients to the houses. And then I went to take a look at the car. It had already been sitting in the garage there for a while, but overall it was in good condition. So it was important to me that I didn't get a huge project that I would first have to weld and fix up or something like that. It did have some weak spots on the sills. Back then I got hold of the original repair panels for it. Luckily they were still available. I got them from a classic car dealer. But apart from that, it was basically great as far as rust was concerned. And it was actually ready to drive too. However, on the way back from there, since I picked it up and drove it home, the service brake failed. Thank goodness it had a well-functioning handbrake. Or actually, it still does to this day. And yeah. I still remember it like it was yesterday. My father-in-law drove with me to pick up the car. And then the brake overheated once because the caliper on the front right was stuck. After that I had no more brake pressure. But I didn't want to leave the car behind. So I drove it home using the handbrake. Thankfully it wasn't far, and made it back that way. Exactly, and that's how it all started. One thing was certain from the start, air suspension was a must for me. And wheels too, of course. That was actually supposed to be it. I think every mechanic or tuner tells themselves it'll just be wheels and suspension, and then the car will stay like that. But then of course a few other ideas came up. And yeah, then came the V8 swap. So the basic idea was that the car actually comes with a V8 from the factory. That's how it is originally available. So at first I got myself the original V8 off eBay. But as it unfortunately goes, I'm not accusing anyone, the engine arrived and it was seized, so it was broken, rusted on the inside. So I was back to having no engine at all. And then I thought about it and decided that I would really like to install the 5.6 liter engine from the 126, which just barely fits in terms of model year, because I didn't want the car to become too modern. It should still stay true to its original line, so I got myself an engine from that model and overhauled it myself, meaning I took it apart myself. Since it's an aluminum engine block with a Nickel coating and the cylinders were no longer perfectly round but slightly oval, I had to do something about it. So I had steel sleeves inserted, I had the heads overhauled and then completely reassembled the engine. Originally the engine runs with a KE Jetronic, which is an electromechanical injection system that was standard back in the 1970s, 1980s and even partly in the early 1990s. It does work, but I wanted to build an old engine with modern technology, so I decided to go with a sequential injection system with a wasted spark ignition system, so the car no longer has a distributor. And then the next idea was, how do I implement this with the transmission? Originally it has a 4-speed, or there was also a 5-speed transmission available for an extra charge. The problem, however, is that the throttle linkage is very complicated. So with numerous deflections, and in some cases the shifting operations are controlled by hydraulic pressure. And I also wanted the engine bay to look really clean and tidy. That was important to me. So I decided on a 5G transmission. That comes from the W210. It's from the E50 AMG because the bell housing fits the aluminum block. So Mercedes is also a bit like VW, kind of a modular system, so you can mix and match, not quite as much, but it works. And yes, I had installed it with a controller from Off Gear, and that's how it came to be in this particular way, after a series of events. Then, of course, I also carefully installed different radiators, including the water radiator. I then checked to see what size I could fit in the largest, both in terms of length and depth. And then I scoured the internet and found that the radiator from the Nissan 240SX fits perfectly and also has the connections on the right side. So I installed that one. At first I had 2 SPAL fans in it. However, especially when it was very hot outside, I had serious problems with them. The engine bay is quite large, but not much air gets in. So I converted it again, this time to a fan from the C63. I control it with a PWM signal, so the fan can speed up or slow down depending on the temperature. Otherwise, the engine is also fully lambda controlled with 2 lambda sensors, 1 for each bank. Of course, this has a positive effect on fuel consumption and emissions, because with a KE Jetronic things tend to run very rich. Back in the 80s, nobody really thought much about CO and so on, or about fuel consumption. But after all, it should also be about cruising in a way that's a bit economical and environmentally friendly. Yeah, when it came to the suspension, at first I probably did what many others do and went with a TH Technic setup. However, I wasn't very satisfied with the suspension, but that's just my opinion. I don't want to badmouth the brand or anything like that. Everyone should have their own experience. I just wasn't very satisfied. So I switched to a suspension from Street Tech by Nullbar, together with an airlift system which drives really, really nicely. The dampers are from Bilstein. Of course, you can really feel the difference. What I think is cool, I have to say, is that the original Mercedes with the stock springs and dampers drives in a very boat-like way, kind of swaying from side to side. With the new suspension, that got a lot better. Still, it's not a high-speed vehicle. It's a street cruiser, a country road cruiser. And then for the wheels, I initially bought these beautiful Baroque rims, the 3-piece ones. I thought they were awesome. When they arrived, it was like Christmas and my birthday all at once. Yeah, but the thing was, they just weren't legal. And since it was important to me to be able to drive the car legally on the road at any time and anywhere I want, I ultimately ended up choosing a different set of rims for the car. This particular one is from the year 1979, and it's a real mesh design, 8 by 16 inches with a reasonable tire size, specifically a 255. Some people say it doesn't fit, it doesn't suit the car, but that's always a matter of taste, I think, and no one can really say one person likes it, another doesn't. I think it looks very harmonious, it fits, looks good, and still looks contemporary to me. The trunk is, as is typical for Mercedes, very large. That's where I installed the tank. At first I only had one compressor in there, but then I realized that if you let it out and raise it up, it just takes forever to pump. So I went ahead and converted it to have a second compressor. Other than that, it's clean and tidy. One thing I still wish for, if I ever have the time, is to convert it to hardlines, which I think is really, really cool and also looks great, but of course it's very time consuming with all the bending, flaring, making and doing. But overall, I'm totally satisfied with the car, and Actually, it's basically finished. I might have one bigger modification planned, which is to convert the car to a modern rear axle. Because right now it still has the old swing axle in it. This is getting very detailed, but that's basically technology from 1960. That's when the axle came out. From a driving and cornering perspective, it's not exactly great. And that's something I'd like to work on again. That's another wish of mine, but we'll see. The interior has been kept mostly original on the outside, which is exactly how I wanted it, and I also think it looks nice. However, of course, I spent a long time thinking about where to put all the electronic equipment, because I wanted the car to look nice and clean, but I also didn't want it to be cluttered with any modern equipment or stuff, at least not visibly. That's exactly why I built a double floor in the passenger footwell area, where I carefully placed both the engine control unit and the transmission control unit. There's a little gimmick on the trunk lid. Previously the badge there was 280 SE. 280 SE stood for 2.8 liter 6-cylinder. And now the badge is 560 SE. Let's put it this way. People from the classic car scene are surprised at first and wonder that model never existed. I just thought it was pretty cool. The lettering doesn't quite match the other badge next to it, but that's simply because there's a generation gap between them. Of course, the font has changed a bit over time, but I still think it's super cool and it fits. Of course, the car didn't come together solely by my own hand. I had 2 or 3 very good friends who helped me with it. Among others, there was Christian Schroeter from KKS Performance, who did the tuning for me and welded the exhaust system. Then my 2 supportive buddies Joey and Tim, who gave me a lot of hands-on help. And last but not least, my patient and understanding wife and my wonderful children for their patience. Yes, I want to say thank you for that. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed the film, leave a like, a comment, subscribe to the Sourkrauts channel, and just drop something in the comments. See you next time and have a great day. Since I was able to borrow my neighbor's car again and again, I once told her, if you ever sell this car, I don't want to be the first person you ask if I want it. I wouldn't have thought it myself, but a convertible really gives you a sense of freedom.